8:30, we'll call Sawyer County Finance Committee meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call a roll, please.
Tom Duffy. Here. Stacy Huffman. Here. Ron Kinsley.
Here.
John Wigheimer's excused. Dale Schleter.
Here. Let the record indicate we have a quorum. Next item is pledge allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Number 4, certification compliance with open meetings law.
This meeting has been noticed to the public individually as required in section 19.84 of Wisconsin.
Thank you. Number 5 is the meeting agenda. It is set. Number 6, public comment. Ms. Silmer.
Linda Zilmer, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Birchwood, Wisconsin, Edgewater property owner. And I'd just like to use public comment to address both agenda and non-agenda items, and then we'll just listen to your committee discussion as those items come up. Number 1, if the detail behind the information that's being presented to the committee is not part of the PDF agenda available online, people either present or viewing virtually cannot follow along with the committee discussion. You really can't follow numbers, especially on the screens, and virtually it's almost impossible. So it would be appreciated if the committee would return to having the detail posted with the agenda. Is also being that the ARPA fund issue is ongoing. Is it possible to just have a simple monthly report that shows the funds committed, spent, and what's available, if that may change? And especially with the recent news report that the Legislative Audit Bureau is concerned with how the PSC has been maybe not properly monitoring the funds dispersed for broadband. I guess I would like to know too, what has Sawyer County have as a policy before they actually disperse the ARPA funds? So Mosaic is my concern. I kind of see what's happening with both phases of projects down in Edgewater and Birchwood. Also, I sent in 2 emails to the committee members and the county administrator and clerk earlier today that illustrate the kinds of sales tax analysis that I have been asking the committee to look at during public comment in previous months. And so I think that kind of report that's easily available over the Wisconsin Department of Revenue is more meaningful to have a discussion about than just the monthly amounts. And then finally, when you talk about ambulance billing, I hope you will be talking about how much is going to be charged to the Washburn County towns for providing Sawyer County ambulance service, because in the past it is far less than what Sawyer County's own towns and cities and villages are being charged, because Sawyer County municipalities are charged based on EPD, and Washburn County has been charged much lower based on population. Thank you.
Thank you. Will it be online? Okay. Number 7, approve the minutes of the previous meeting of August 10th.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Ms. Hessel to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 8, American Rescue Act 2021 funding update.
No real updates on funding, and we've got all the monies here. We dispersed in the last month the money to the housing authority. And then outside of that, we've got a draft agreement now to start putting in place with all the entities that are getting money to make sure when we have to comply with ARPA that we're able to get any information from them that we need.
Okay. Questions? Thank you. Number 9, Treasurer's Department update. Welcome, Janine.
Thank you. Thank you. So the sales tax report was sent out. I'm sure everybody took a look at that. We have the August settlements that we just completed in the Treasurer's Department. The notice of issuance basically to delinquent tax notices were also mailed out, the end of August. On that notice, we included website details, to the taxpayers so that they are aware that they can obtain, any tax-related information simply by going online. They can print their tax bills, they can print their receipts, they can see if a payment was receipted or not. We also included a little insert in the card relating to Wisconsin Help for Homeowners, and that has been, I think that was back in March when that program was adopted. And so basically what that is a program that can help the homeowners pay bills such as property taxes. So that was included in the mailing as well. We are receiving, payments regarding in response to that delinquent payment notice that went out. But of course, we're also receiving a lot of return to sender mailings because of people with address changes. So we have to mail those notices again to the taxpayers, but we're also including a little pamphlet that includes information so that the taxpayer can either contact Sawyer County to update their address. So we have the information accurate in our system. And we're also including information to let them know that they can basically go online and make that address change themselves. So we will continue to work now with lottery credit applications, and yesterday at the land water meeting, we discussed we have 2020 and prior county land sales of property that has not sold. And so I'm working with Wisconsin Surplus Auction to get those listed on the website.
Thank you. How does that work now? The county used to take the property back, but now we're gonna start selling at auction? Or can you give us a little light on that, please?
So right now we have a list available online, and those properties are properties that Sawyer County took back 2020 and prior. So the ones that we took back last year, the 2021 properties, we have not proceeded with that we're going to do. But basically, was it in July, Andy and I presented to the committee opportunity for an individual to come in and purchase the property at the counter versus going to committees for approval. So once the committee approves the list with the minimum amount, somebody can actually come in, make a purchase right at the counter.
Okay.
Those properties, they're advertised on our website. Whether or not they get a lot of views or hits is another. The Wisconsin Surplus Auction has had good success. Various departments are using it, and so we are going to try that in Sawyer County with the land that we have there.
Mr. Sleater.
How many delinquencies did you send out?
As far as notices for the mailings, I know there was, I think there was 1,500 sheets, but obviously there's multiple tax or property owners, so it's hard to determine that.
Is that ruling? Is that?
It was pretty similar to last year's. But again, it's hard to judge based on just the number of documents.
Right. You know how busy you are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's still a large number.
Are any of those properties really valuable? Really not toilet.
For delinquents, I guess it doesn't. From what I've noticed, it doesn't matter who you are or your value, or people sometimes just forget, or they claim that they didn't get the information, or and it takes time to get the money in. We are seeing an increase in credit card payments, which is good, because then we're not dealing with NSFs. We're getting the money, and Sawyer County is not being charged the fees. Yes, yeah. So service that we use, they charge a fee. But they do not charge Sawyer County a fee. Mhm.
I was just wondering. All those parcels.
Mhm.
um, are there some parcels that stand out as lakeshore property or something that significant value?
No.
This is all.
The ones that I'm working with right now, I believe there's 16 of them. There may be 4 of them with homes on them, but the homes might not be in good condition. The power may have been turned off to them for years.
Any other questions for Gene? I have one more question, if I may, please. When we send the stuff to auction, I assume that we have a base that we want to achieve.
I sent an email to Andy yesterday, and with the auction company, we have 2 options. We can either put it out with a minimum dollar amount. That Sawyer County has already approved to sell that property at, or we could start it at $100 per se. But Sawyer County does have the option to accept or reject any offer that comes in.
It'd be interesting to see how that works. Have we done that in the past?
Sawyer County has not.
Maybe keep us abreast of that a little bit, if you would be
Absolutely.
so kind. Mr. Sleep.
Under that, that works. If Sawyer County says, no, I'm not going to accept that bid, do we have to pay a certain percentage to the auction company for the money they would have made if that bid has been accepted?
I don't believe so, but I will confirm.
Like buying our own property.
Right.
Mr. Schuman.
Well, Mr. Chairman, am I reading this right for the sales tax for August? On this graph, have you been there? Or maybe we discussed that already?
Cheers. Yes.
Wow. Looks like it's still climbing, huh?
That's a good thing.
Yeah. That's August.
Thank you, Janine.
Mhm.
Much appreciated. Moving on, number 10, ambulance revenues and expenses. I asked this to be on there because I know that we've just changed hands with Life, is it Life Quest, Life? Thing? And want to know how that's going, and always want to keep the check. We want to receive all the money we can out of the billing in ambulance. Who wants to handle that?
We pull up our report. We had a meeting with them the end of last week to kind of go through the billing reports. So Mike and I can get a little more familiar with it. It's just so the timeline that for the billing is the billing effective January 15th was switched over to LifeQuest, although they weren't on board yet. So they started in March, really getting all those bills out. So there's a bit of a backlog. So we're starting to get a few months reports now that it takes time once they set up the billing for the insurance company, or the Medicare, or the private pay to see the payments. So this is the type of report we're getting. Shows the billing charges go out, then there's adjustments if somebody's deceased, or if there's intercept and the billing switches to another company or another service, excuse me. If they're forgiven, if there's adjustments to the insurance company. The net amount we were supposed to receive in July was 103,000. Some of those payments we received directly, and they reconcile with what the LifeQuest gets, and so we had about $60,000 last month that they had to send us. They kind of explain a little different breakdown, showing the credits and the LifeQuest fee. They charge percentage, so their fee for July was $4,373. And again, explaining Nothing at this point. They'll do collections as well, but we're still pretty early, so none of the billing that they've done has been placed for collections yet. This other report here, Mike, and this is one they provided us this week that we hadn't seen before. Just to give you an idea of,
You could do like 300%.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
so this just gives you an idea of the call summary. So as far as how they're billing, to start with, this shows the payer for the ambulance service. The charges, the credits, how much has been received, and the balance that's still outstanding. So you can see private pay or Medicare or medical assistance. And top of the payer list, and they have all different insurance companies. Or if we provided to another service, provided service to another service, you'll see that Barnes is listed in here. For some of the ones we may have covered for them. So the charges total to date, 471 runs, is 738,000, 192 that's been received. There's a balance outstanding of 545. Engaging. Shows those same list of payers. How much that's current billing and then the aging of 280 days.
When things get billed out and the pay is done, what percentage do we probably get overall in a month? Can that be figured out in ballpark?
I don't know, like, well, I don't know if I can give you a month, but I'm not sure if this is your question, but the ambulance services in general, 911, you're gonna end up collecting 50% of your bill charges. That's average. I mean, it might be a little less,
I wouldn't expect it to be that high.
yeah. Now, how much do we get within a month based on the bill? Comes at the time, but over the course of a year, if you bill 1.5 million, then you're gonna recover about 750,000.
That's what I was after. I didn't think it was that high either.
Just cover a helicopter flights too.
No, because once you get on the helicopter bills, it's like we transfer the patient to the helicopter service, and then they take over their own bill.
And if they can't pay, we have no obligation at all.
Right, we're not on the hook for the helicopter service.
Yes.
You mentioned runs made for barns. Do they have any type of ambulance organization up there now?
They do, but when they're having staffing issues, so if there's a call that they can't respond to, we might have to go up and,
We charge them for that?
yeah, we have a agreement with Barnes.
Is it I don't even know all the details, but I remember when we were trying to hash that out originally. The Barnes wanted Sawyer County to take over their ambulance duties. Is the amount that they are paying us per run or is it per month?
Per run, I believe, based on the billing, it's per month, per run.
Thank you.
The summer.
Thank you, Chairman. I have two questions. One is, if I understood correctly, that there are some payments coming directly to the county, and then there was a reconciliation or a life quest that you reimburse the county more. I don't understand why any payments would be coming directly to the county. And then also, if they could touch on the ability to the Washburn County accounts that I mentioned in the public accounts.
We have talked about the Washburn County before, and we're going to reevaluate that and bring it up to the rest of the standard. I understood.
Yeah, that's still working on that. I don't have the updates on it.
And then just the payments directly to the county.
Yeah, that's, I don't know if I have a good explanation of why it's other than sometimes people still, like an insurance company or. An individual doesn't follow the directions and sends the payment to the county. So we deposit it, and we report that back to the person who can reconcile with the billing that they sent out.
Any other questions for ambulance revenues and expenses?
The, just the last couple of months, I believe, the income statement has been attached to the public safety agenda under the ambulance report.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
want them on the finance?
Yeah, please. Number 11, carbon tax credit update. Where are we at with that?
We have been waiting and working with another company to get a second proposal to have something for the county to prepare. That proposal has not come in yet. We've provided them information, we've answered some questions. They hoped it would be here by now. I checked with another county that was also talking to them about getting a proposal. They asked for their proposal a month or two before us, and they still don't have theirs.
Okay,
So we're a little discouraged. We're gonna get that proposal in a timely manner. Honestly, the questions that we've answered are a little bit different and a little lead me to believe that we might not see as good a proposal as similar proposal as what we have.
Mhm.
So I think based on the discussion at the other committee, we're gonna move ahead on getting the other agreement completed. And so we can move ahead here this fall, rather than very big one.
Ms. Essen?
Can you confirm? I don't think that it's supposed to have the word tax in it. I think it's just carbon credit, not carbon tax.
Yes.
So that could be corrected because we're not taxing. It's just a carbon credit program.
Thank you.
That was a confusion in the board meeting that the public spoke at. And they thought that the word tax was included and it's not.
That's a scary word.
Well,
Yes, Mr. Schuman.
Oh, Andy, is there an expiration date on the first proposal? Are you still good with that, or
No, we're still good.
are we pushing up against the deadline or anything?
No, because I mean, the proposal was giving you full farmer based on that moment in time. They were estimating the value of the credits. So no, when he was here, the representative from Blue Source was here end of July. We just sat down with him to meet face to face for once. So the proposal is still good. The agreement we're working on.
Is the value of the credits going up or down?
Still going on.
Up.
Yeah.
So I thought.
And I guess the other noteworthy thing with the Blue Source proposal is now Douglas County. He was actually here because he was meeting with Douglas County that day, and Douglas County signed on. So Douglas, Bayfield, Washburn, Price, Russ, I think Ashland, and I think Lincoln will still be deciding. Those are all signed on with Blue Source now. Signed with Blue Source.
No, Russ County's been on for a little more than a year, probably.
Yeah.
Have you followed along with that a little bit?
They're still in due diligence. I don't know where they're at today. They were doing late winter, spring, they were doing the test plots in the county forest. They come out to they stake off, I don't know how many different areas, but small plots where they gather the data and determine the growth rate. It helps determine the credits. Bayfield County is the one that is the furthest ahead. And their credits are supposed to be going to market or being sold late fall.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they're able to sell them for this year.
Yes, Mr. Schuman.
Chairman Andy, there's so much misinformation out there about these carbon credits, I've been hearing both sides, and I'm sure everybody else is getting emailed, which one way or the other. Have we ever thought about maybe having a public hearing or an education session on this before we actually decide? It seems that important.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of people on both sides of this.
Yeah, I know, depending on who you want to come in and do that, if you want somebody to come and do that, then the board would be comfortable.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know what the board thinks but there's a lot of unanswered questions.
You know, when he was here at the end of July, we took that opportunity because we were already gonna try to have a meeting with the local foresters.
Yeah.
Forester companies.
Yep.
And so we were able to get them together when he was here. And had LP and Futurewood and Midwest Forest Products.
Okay.
came to
They came to Land Water.
Nope, we just had we invited them to meet.
Oh,
with
okay.
Patriots while they were here. And
Okay.
they had, I mean, that's one area that potentially had some concerns and they asked, and we spent an hour back and forth and getting the questions answered, asking how the credits work. I mean, their main concern would be the same as ours as the county, that we don't want this to affect our ability to harvest.
Right.
And the harvest practices, and I think the answers the police source gave.
Yeah.
Indicated that's not what's gonna happen.
And we're certainly not promoting more pollution, right? I mean, that's,
It's
no one wants that. I don't know.
No, well, and it's a voluntary program. We're not, these companies aren't required to buy the credits. It's part of their business model to do this. The other thing with the anything affecting the harvest, one of the reasons we're essentially eligible for the carbon market is that we have a sustainable forest. We're certified. And that actually guides more of the harvest practices and access to the woods than the carbon credits do. So we have to maintain that certification, not only for the carbon market, but just to sell our timber at market prices. If we were certified as a sustainable forest, we wouldn't get the same value on our timber sales.
Good explanation, yes.
When you say there's a lot of questions out there, are you talking about the mechanics of how the process works? Or are you talking about people who are concerned with just doing it, period, and they
Just doing it. And that would be allowing or promoting big industry to pollute or to substantiate their pollution.
Yeah.
So-called.
because frankly, I had some problems with this earlier on. Some company was already polluting, was going to buy our credits and continue polluting.
Right.
That doesn't solve anything. It makes us look pretty.
Correct.
But then when I saw the list of companies that were potentially interested in buying ours, they were doing it because they wanted to hold on to those credits and keep them away from the polluters. That's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
But I would like to see how we can be assured of that.
And maybe the other way I could state it too is, if it's voluntary, the companies, I mean, it's just matter of fact, all companies pollute at some level.
Sure.
By these credits don't enable them to pollute anymore. If they don't have to buy these credits in order to pollute more, or, I mean, I'd say more, because it's a voluntary market, it's more that they understand that they pollute and they want to have these credits to reduce their overall footprint.
But they're still polluting as much as they ever.
Well, I mean, it doesn't, by buying these credits, doesn't enable them to pollute anymore.
No, but it allows them to continue at the rate they're going.
That doesn't allow them to do it. I mean, they can continue on, they can do less if they want, they can do less if they want, they can do more if they want. The credits don't enable them to do anything.
Then why would they want to buy it?
Because it looks good on paper.
Yep.
There you go.
It looks good on paper.
That's a-
Well, it is what it is, yeah.
It is what it is.
It's not my reason. I'm not
No,
gonna
I
make
think
it up.
it is
Big sale pitch.
Okay, it was not, I'm not promoting it. No, that's
I
okay.
think where there's confusion is there's the California model, which in order to pollute, they have to buy credits in order to, to keep their pollution levels within a certain threshold.
Maybe that's where I.
And that's a different market, a different market, different marketplace. There's a California marketplace where those credits are bought and sold, which is entirely different than the marketplace our credits are in.
Cecil.
So getting back to our committee, how does this benefit us financially? I mean, we could have the hearing in land and water, but financially, that's what we're looking at is can we do more in the county because we take this program on? I mean, that's what I think
Right.
our committee should look at, not necessarily if it's a good program or not a good program.
I mean, you're gonna, it's like another truck leaving the woods with the local timber, that's another revenue source for the county first.
But it's not gonna limit our revenue source, it's an addition.
Right.
That's what I think needs to be made clear. I
Yep.
think people don't understand that.
Yeah, it won't affect the harvest levels of how much timber can be cut and sold, or the price of that timber when it goes, because that's something my place.
So if you have I go home. The availability to have a hearing just as an informational session, not necessarily like a ton of public comment. But just a informational session where you have the forest industry. And I think I would applaud that just so that the general population can hear that it is an addition to our already revenue. I think that they're thinking it's a replacement. That's the calls that I get. And then they want to make sure it's not the tax like that it's listed here, that there's nothing's going to be taxed for Sawyer County with this program being added.
Do you want that hearing as part of the board meeting or something?
I just throw that out there for the board to think about. I think it'd be good. Especially what Cecil said about an educational thing where the public can ask questions and have it answered by foresters and, you know. People are in the know with that. I think that would really help because there's misconception out
Yeah,
there.
just keeping it transparent, like,
Yep.
you know, your meeting was a great one, but if the general public didn't hear what the foresters said, I think that they would really want to know that.
Yeah, and whether you tie it loan or whether it's land water, either way.
I guess the other, what was they thinking, me with the foresters was that there was at least one of the companies, probably two of those, that are doing their own carbon credit market as well. On their,
You certainly invite them to this.
yeah, they have their own land that they are putting out there in the carbon market.
Because what I learned is the carbon credits, you can even do it as a residential. Like I could contact Blue Source and say, hey, I want my land to be a carbon credit source. So I think that those are things that the community is looking to make money to.
Mr. Slater.
Yeah, I like the idea of a hearing, public hearing. And I think it might be better to do it at a county board meeting so that we and the public are hearing the same thing at the same time. And we're all on the same page there.
I'd agree with that. I think like if we had a half-hour meeting prior to the regular board meeting. And probably the sooner the better, because
Yeah.
before we have to vote on it, it'd be nice to have like one meeting prior to the night we vote on it.
Yeah, good idea. We look at that, Andy, Glenn.
And
When you get your people lined up, we'll have it right before a county board meeting soon. Great.
Yeah, I don't know if we can put it together for next week, but definitely. October we can do it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay. Number 12, Sheriff's Department report. Hello, Mr. Sheriff. I asked this to be on the agenda so that we have labor negotiations coming up soon. I want to know where they were setting at with their budget. So use that for a comparison. So I asked this to be on the agenda. What you got?
So you're talking what we budget next year for salary?
A little bit of everything.
And,
Pardon?
3%.
3%?
Next year.
And how many new positions?
It'll be busted for.
Four.
Investigator. 2 jailers and a dispatcher, or 2 dispatchers, 1 jailer.
2 jailers, 1 dispatch.
2 jailers, 1 dispatcher.
I think Mike will present the preliminary budgets next. I think that as of now, with the 2 of the floor.
Okay.
Still having there. I mean, their budget for this year, is holding up pretty well considering the number of vacancies, which has led to increased overtime in a couple of the divisions. So doesn't mean actually department wide, the 22 budget is on track.
Okay.
We're not looking at any major deficits that we have to anticipate in the plan. So we're seeing all the negotiations. We are in the process right now of exchanging dates. The Patrol Division is represented. They just switched their union representation, so we deal with a different entity. So that's kind of unknown. They're relatively unknown in this part of the state to have to negotiate with. So and we knew who we had before and we moved out. We don't know what we're getting into now, but hopefully we exchanged dates for the last 2 weeks of this month.
Okay.
So hopefully we get that set up and find out. So I'm not going to predict how that's going to.
And then our legal representation is gonna be by who?
Not recent.
Okay.
So as part of our insurance policy with County Mutual, we enter negotiations. There's the insurance company pays part of that cost. That we use Brown and Reason for our past negotiations. So Ryan Hayden, who's our primary HR person out in Milwaukee, will be part of that. And then Brian Samson will clear office probably be with us here in person.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So Andy, I know part of our staffing shortage at the jail has led to some inmates being transferred out to other counties and that. How does that affect our budget?
It's not.
Maybe that's for you too.
$43.
Is it a wash or is that?
It depends how much transport costs us. I mean, actually, the sheriff knows this number too, but the actual cost to bunk at another jail, maybe even a little less than what it costs us per day. But it's the cost of moving them back and forth.
Correct.
And where we have, I mean, we are at a critical point because we know we have some staff leave coming up.
Yeah.
Which might lead us to housing all of maybe the female prisoners rather than county for a period of time until we can staff up the female
Sure.
side of the operation. So question, can you find enough beds now?
Yeah.
We're probably not gonna get them all in one place.
So our jail isn't full, we just don't have the staff. We have to meet the Department of Corrections minimum standards to maintain operation, and we cannot do that to double bunk, so we've shifted the double bunking to primarily Barron County and a little bit and Bayfield at times. My biggest concern here is in 7 weeks, we're down to 4 female jailers. It takes 4 to maintain our female population, and 2 of the 4 are going to be out on maternity leave. And we are going to be forced to ship all of our females out of county. And bigger concern than that is if we are not able to find a county that'll house a couple of our challenging inmates or high risk inmates, I don't know what we're gonna do.
Is this a problem with money? Is it salary?
We had a jail meeting last night and the primary feedback is money. How do you know? I know we have very few applicants. We have had a few applicants that interviewed and have a current job. And it seems like they went back and their current job offered them more money or a day position or accommodated in some way to keep them. I mean, it seems like the community's fighting over a few employees. And it's like survival of the fittest, who has the best package. It's an employee market. I mean, they're able to pick what they want.
What is the cost of house in Barron?
$43 a day.
Plus travel.
What's the matter? Where we spend the money? We either pay for more help or we pay in Barron County. You know?
The other challenge we're gonna have is correlating with the court and getting them here for court and dealing with those issues back and forth. And the travel time is going to consume our road deputies. instead of out on patrol, they're gonna be transporting inmates.
Plus you're paying their salary to just drive.
Yes,
That makes no sense.
yes,
How much do we currently pay the jailers right now?
$20.86.
Could not pay me to get spit on and yelled at for that. Go away.
When they have hearings, can they do any of that virtual? Is that availability?
Some, as long as the other county jail has the technology and the ability to do that, it's functioning. Some judges become upset if it doesn't function or things don't work perfectly.
There's nothing better than having it in person, but yeah.
Doug, Chairman, can you negotiate with these other facilities for a better rate, or is that 43 a good rate? 43 is a good rate. It probably costs 65 plus a day just to pay the staff you have and energy and everything else.
So my concern is, we're doing this addition, we've added on to the jail. If we're not using our own jail, I don't understand why we wouldn't just hire the 4 positions and give, and negotiate correctly instead of promoting going someplace else. Like, I know that you're saying it's cheaper, but it's really not. When you look at everything we've put into our local system, we should continue to put into that, and that's with staff as well.
We have 14 full-time jailers right now, positions. We're down 4 full-time positions right now with minimal to no applicants. Our jail is in a crisis we've never faced before. And I'm very concerned that I don't know what we're gonna do.
Especially with the increase in drugs coming in the area, the violence. I would rather give the law enforcement more of a budget than a library, but that's just my opinion.
What's the recommendation? They sit here and talk about it, but that's been a problem for a long time. We either raise the rate or we put up with this problem,
My opinion, I think, we definitely need to take a serious look at increasing wages. If that's a possibility. To be competitive to the outside markets. We had an individual working at LP and he was interested, and their low wages at LP are $25, $26 an hour.
And what is our benefit package? Could we promote that more too, besides the actual hourly rate? I'm sure that it's a great benefit package that we could be promoting.
You have a valid point, but my opinion, truthfully, is a lot of our jailers are young people. And young people don't look at insurance and retirement. They look at what they can hold in their hand every 2 weeks.
That's consistent with what we found during the exit interviews.
Yeah.
The hourly rates, when you're young and you're healthy, health insurance isn't necessarily the top of your mind. Retirement used to be a benefit. If being a public employee, that was a selling point. That's like a.
So Andy, what do you recommend?
Well, I think where I've been with it is, I think wage adjustments, just circular, like you adjusted the wages last year, a year ago. So we've been hesitant to adjust them again. The Sheriff's right that we have got the feedback from current staff about the wages. During our exit interviews, good number of the people that are leaving are not leaving for more money. They're leaving for jobs that actually, on the recruitment side, like you said, when you offer a job, other employers are willing to all of a sudden pay more to keep the people. The people that are leaving aren't always generally not taking jobs with higher pay, but they are taking jobs with comparable or maybe a little less, but much better working conditions than what they have in jail. And it's kind of a compounded problem that as we've lost staff, we're having to order in people, and at some point, people are just not interested in being ordered in that much and working that many hours. So to go back to what I think a wage adjustment is, we've talked about doing signing bonuses or something initial up front to get them in the door and trying not to move the hourly wage. So I think we'll probably end up doing that because we can do that pretty easily. We have the money in the budget to do that. The wages, I think, need to be adjusted, but I've been hesitant to move ahead on the wage adjustment right away until we do negotiations on the union, because I don't want to set some type of atmosphere before we get into negotiations. The jail employees are not under a contract. Patrol side is, but in some counties, that's a combined contract. So I'm just anticipating that if we do something with the jail, the union will use that as part of their basis for how much they should get as an increase. It's not the biggest issue. That's kind of where I was trying to hold off until we see what we're gonna end up with the patrol side and do something with the jail side.
And has the sheriff's department maxed out their budget every year, or has there, I mean, like, is this a concern that you won't be able to get, if you increase the wages, will you not get other things, or have you always kept it low? I don't know if I'm making sense, but I mean, are you concerned with losing other availabilities, or are you okay with spending the budget on the employees instead of like a SUV or squad car or something like that?
Well, it's all line item and we monitor that.
Okay.
I've been under budget every year and I take that seriously. But this year, I don't know what's gonna happen because we have to operate and we're forced to enter into decisions that were unexpected, but we have to deal with. And I mean, I know we're not alone county-wise, we're not alone county jail-wise, county sheriff's department-wise across the state. This is a crisis that many or most counties are facing in some way, shape, or form. But I'm afraid additionally, it's good discussion because this issue is going to get worse in upcoming years, not better.
And just for comfort's sake, it's not just law enforcement. We're staying at the school. I think every major hiring opportunity is seeing it, but we want our people safe. So it's like, if you can put money to keep our people safe, then we'll have more people come to our area. So.
Sheriff, if we increase the budget for bracelets, could you get more out on the bracelet and save some of the incarcerations?
We are working with Justice Point to make some changes there. You know, we started off on the conservative side to make sure that, you know, we had consistent success, so it didn't come back to haunt us on the backside. But we are looking at everything we can to release on the EMs.
Do you have a limit of how many bracelets you have?
We can get more.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
But that would save some money.
It's criteria based, not number for bracelets.
Those should
And-
other people.
Andy and Sheriff, we've done wage studies, right? So we're comparable to other jails and jail staff, our wages? True.
We have, I mean, we did it a year ago when we adjusted them, but
Right.
it's like like the sheriff said, this is really a statewide problem. This is a pretty common topic amongst the people I talk to, every county struggling with jail staff. So that the wage study that was done a year ago is quickly falling out of date.
I just received an email this morning from Richland County. I mean, they're in a crisis, so all the counties are reaching out to others to see what they are, and it's going like this.
That's it, yeah, Richland County, I have a group that we talk almost weekly on Zoom, and Richland County is part of that. And, some of the other counties, the only county on our group that has not had problems is Kewaunee. And it's because their jail wages are $28 an hour, I think. They raise theirs because they compete with Brown County wages. And so they have no problem pulling Brown County people over to work in Kewaunee because it's a much better working environment than Brown County jail. It's just a unique circumstance, but all the other counties nearby us are also struggling with their jail staffing, and they like the comment about dispatch and jail. That's the other, I mean, some counties that are combined positions are looking at how to separate them, and some that are separated are talking about how to combine them. And we talked, I mean, all the things you brought up, the bracelets, we talked about schedules, we talked about sharing, going to share dispatch jail staff. We've kicked around just about every idea to figure out a way to address this.
So my concern is I mean, we can pay them whatever, you know, high end, low end, whatever, but are we seeing graduates coming out? I mean, are we seeing people wanting to get into law enforcement, or are we gonna have a hiring issue because nobody is wanting to get into law enforcement? I mean, what are the colleges, what are the tech schools, when are there graduates coming out? I mean, do we have people that want to serve?
Well, when it comes to the tech school graduates, you're looking at just road deputies because that requires a 2-year associate's degree and graduation from the recruit academy. For jailers, they only need a high school diploma. And then we send them to 5 weeks of jail school within the first year or two. It's supposed to be a year, but they allow another year extension on there. We have had quite a few that have worked here almost 2 years and quit before we got them to jail school. When it comes to the academy on the patrol end, there's not as many people entering law enforcement as what there is for a need. So law enforcement agencies, myself included, are going to the academies upon graduation and getting with the instructors and trying to recruit, solicit employees to come here. We used to have 3 or 4 part-time deputies working for us, and we were able to hire a full-time road deputy off our part-time pool. That's non-existent right now. We're having to have the full-timers come in and work overtime to fill the voids because our part-time pool is next to nothing. The ones we do have in our part-time pool work for the city of Hayward full-time.
So maybe it's a situation where you get them early and go into the high school and recruit. I mean, that we have a what's your plan program, and I think that would be a
We're
great
involved in
opportunity. Okay, great.
We're involved in that. We reach out. I mean, we're very open if we're missing something. Bring it forward. We want to do what we can to enhance it, but you know, I think the numbers aren't there and we're all fighting over the few numbers there. The applicants, you know, that we have received, you know, it's pretty clear, you know, they work for Walmart or another business and they don't want us to contact their employer because the management sucked and comments like that on the application.
Has the county ever investigated offering cash in lieu of health insurance?
Yeah, I don't remember.
An attraction for younger people. They can still be on their parents' plan. Give them $6,000 instead of single plan costs us 10, so it's cheaper for the county. Something to invest in. I'd have to do a study and see how many people aren't on insurance that work here now because you have to figure out too.
Thank you for volunteering to do that. That's nice of you.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, they offer a lot of businesses. If you don't.
you have to show proof of insurance.
Certainly something we should look into, yes. Thank you, Sheriff, for bringing us up to date and telling us things that we didn't know. I wish I could do more to help you, but I don't know how right now either. Yes.
So, Mike, right? Mike, what is in the 23 budget for the sheriff's department and the jail? It's 3%.
That's why I go into the budget presentation.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yep.
All right, so I gave you a little packet. Pull it out on the screen too. My 17th budget is similar to this, with my first county budget. So I don't really know what to expect, so bear with me as I go through the background work we've done. This is a preliminary budget. A lot of the stuff we don't know yet. The resolution actually comes out tomorrow. I kind of have an idea of what it's going to be based on our new construction.
Do you have another copy that the Sheriff might want?
Sure. First thing I want to say is everyone's been great. The department's opting for with the budget that was very reasonable. We asked for what they really felt they needed, something that offered some reduction. The process was great. Of course, in the end, it's bigger than the available money, but that's what we're talking about. I mentioned the preliminary net new construction is 1.17%, which is the highest it's been in the past 13 years, which is the data goes back to 9 on the deal on our website. That means about $125,000 to $130,000 depending on
which number they go on. So, you know, it's a deep amount, but everything we talk about, it's up more than that already, so we gotta find native sources. The one thing that's, you know, we looked at today already, the sales tax has been very strong. We watched it 2.2 million, we're going to far exceed that. I did a projection based on the last 3 years' history by month. Because on average of this year, CASA is more than this month, 2.8 million, so that we won't hit. Next year, we'll, you know, we could probably hit like 285, budgeted 260, conservative.
Mike, can you put that in your budget then, or are you kind of afraid to?
No, I
Some of
put
that,
2.6,
2.6, got it.
which is an increase of 400,000.
Yeah.
To offset, though, unfortunately, we also talked earlier about the sale of properties. It used to be we could keep all the money, and now we have to just, we get to just keep our expenses and then give the money back to the property owner. So that's a big, we used to take in, you know, last year we budgeted 400,000, this year it's 50,000. Because of that change. So that was a big move to budget. For the sales tax, filling that gap over the.
Gotcha.
Sales tax probably will exceed 2.6, but we just want to be conservative, which I'll talk about in a little bit. One thing that you guys probably are aware of, hoping, but it was kind of news to me when I met with our bond counsel a couple of weeks ago. He is asking them not to do a CIP this year, just roll it into any bond issue or, you know, the rest of the courthouse next year in March. I know we talked about using ARPA money to cover that cost, but that won't cover the whole because we sell a bond issue. He's recommending we not do CIP more than that.
Yes, that's what's a CIP.
Capital improvement. So we've been doing that for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
And
That's that short-term loan.
it is, no. The one problem I personally have with doing that is we're taking stuff that doesn't have a useful life of 8 years and paying for it over 8 years for the 8 or 10 years. So I don't really agree with that way. One thing you could do is maybe use the ARPA money for what you put in the CIP and then do it in the issue on to what's already proven by the phone. So it wouldn't change any of the money, it would just change the source.
Well, we were warned, Mike, that once you go down that road, it's tough to get out.
So it's not that we wouldn't be borrowing, just wouldn't be a separate CIP. That we would open up. But like I mentioned, the term of that makes me feel a little uncomfortable because yes, in the future years we're going to be going back to the CIP, but we will still have this day that we're paying for over 8 years. So 2 years. Yes.
With the, oh, sorry.
So the future years CIP would be back to
It
the,
wouldn't come back.
back to the 1 or 2 year. Yeah, just the word.
We'd like to get to the point where it's in and out, you know, we borrow in December, the code of extension, we pay off. We're not paying interest for us using the vehicle to receive.
The interest that we're making off the bonds, does that go right back into the building fund? Okay.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're not making any money from that. It's different. When I did my first bond issuance, we were back in 06, we made $1 million on 36 million. We're going into the construction. We also did a bond anticipation over the sale of 3 years. There are ways you can do stuff, but there's the environment right now, you're just not going to make money.
And Mike, are you taking in the possibility of another revenue stream coming, or have you even considered that?
Like the carbon?
I didn't want to say it, but that's in the back of your mind, right?
Yeah, everything we look at today does not include that, but yes, that would be a nice revenue stream.
We've talked about it, but even if we sign on carbon today, you definitely won't see any money in 23, and even 24. It can be late 24 before you see the money. But yeah, we've eyeballed, okay, this is happening. Okay, if we can get to here, then we could have carbon.
Got it.
So speaking of levy limit exemption, there's a list here, bridge and culvert construction. We've had a usually about 30,000 on that. From the countrywide emergency services in public libraries and outside. Payments of any general obligation debt, which is what we do statute, is outside of that. There are a couple that we haven't taken advantage of that we could. The premiums for property and casualty insurance and the outside of levy limit. I actually went when we take a look at that this year. And then another one we haven't done is any court ordered placements.
Right.
We can actually allow the outside. We haven't done that yet. Holy cow, estimate what that's going to be, I guess. I'll look at the past history and additional.
Well, it can be significant though.
It could be, no, we typically budgeted $1 million for that. We haven't used that much in the next year, so we probably will use that budget potentially. And those aren't all going to be priority. But I'm sure percentages.
Gotcha.
Budgeted $1 million for ordered placements.
Not necessarily quarterly, all placements. So if we don't have a place to house
Okay, and
someone's recovery.
you don't think this includes Redota?
Winnebago, yeah.
And you don't think we're gonna use that whole building this year?
No,
Not this,
no, well, it was coming down and then the one individual that was placed at Winnebago is in another facility. So it's still expensive, but it's not as expensive as Winnebago.
Is that through the, what do you call it, 151
Chapter
chapter?
51.
Yeah.
50, okay. They don't provide any real treatment either.
No, I mean, in this particular case is more, it's not really treatment, it's more they need supervision and treatment.
Yes.
Yeah, safety.
So,
Do you have confidence in that resolution you presented to WCA helping us with that?
I think it's still, I have confidence it's getting attention.
Yeah.
But I mean, at this point, it's wishful thinking. It's anytime you make the legislature try to change a program, it's
Years.
years. And,
Yeah.
But I think, for those going to the conference, Lynn sent out the topics of the session, and there's a session dedicated to that topic.
That's just a little update on our unassigned general fund balance. As of December 31st, 2021, it's at just under $8 million. I believe our board policy is between 20% and 30% of expenditures. So 20% of general fund expenditures this year, with the preliminary budget would be just under 3.7 million required in fund balance, and at 30% would be 5.55. So we'll just keep that in mind as we continue on. This next page is just a little history of our net new construction. You can see since 2015, we're on a pretty consistent trajectory up, which is good. Because that is our main source of new money for the county. And then this next page, I don't think I have that in there. But so the requested additions, these are kind of the main ones that came forward from our meetings with the departments. We did do an adjustment on the pay grid for emergency services. That was quite a bit for. I don't think it's on that one page. So that was quite an increase. And when I mentioned these requested additions, they're year to year. So while it's primarily what I listed here, it's also the cost of health insurance increase and other stuff too. It could be in there. The next four are combined together, the deputy investigator, dispatcher, 2 jailers. And then we did adjust some salaries. So that was a big number. With maintenance, we moved a half-time custodian to full-time. Of course, when you do that, you also have insurance, which insurance is expensive. And then some other things on the budget is heck away some maintenance. And then IT, I might can speak to this, but they're looking for some upgrades in security, like firewalls, that kind of thing. You explain it better.
Well, it's mostly security
network security and individual computers. That's the bulk of it, plus, just replacement hardware, upgraded hardware, eventually it wears out and needs to be replaced. So,
So you will stop getting those emails from Andy asking for money.
that's the whole.
Just make one comment to, so the net new construction, like I said, generated additional money for us this year. If you want me in the budget and part of the maintenance increases is addressing the expansion. So we increased utility costs and housekeeping, upkeep costs. So those are reflected. So it's not eating up that entire amount you're getting in the new construction, but the new building is not coming out with additional operational costs that would be year to year going forward.
We knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I look at the expenses versus the revenue, right now the gap is at 2.2 million. This year, we budgeted just under 1.4 million in that fund balance. With sales tax exceeding expectations, so we're not going to draw that. And this is kind of new to me coming from school to. How are we doing? The schools are a lot more predictable, especially in revenue stuff. The majority comes from revenue per pupil and much revenue than we have grants and stuff. But there's so much fluctuation, so we try to conservatively budget revenues and probably budget expenses. So then we budget in fund balance and kind of not using it all. In fact, last year we dumped a lot in the fund balance. So we've done a lot in again, but hopefully we won't use full inflation to drop from. So then I didn't know how much I should go, how far I go with this. I did put in some recommendations for some things to look at. Right now, we've got health insurance budget at a 10% increase. Our cost on a family plan is projected to be 28.5 next year, which is that's high. It's a lot. That's at 88% of cost. So the actual cost is 30,000. I think we can do some stuff to get that down to 5%. Right now, our utilization is strong. Kind of benchmark compare 88-89% utilization, you get a flat renewal. It makes still try to squeeze something in just for cost of care. That benchmark is just 68%. We have same claim 1 year to the next, it's going to cost us 68% more just for cost of care. But right now we're well under 80% as far as our utilization. So I'm thinking we're going to get a strong renewal. We're also marketing it out to other carriers to get us. And another thing we're looking at is self-insuring, which is a little bit scary to get into. The proposal looked really good. What I did, I know a little bit about it because I've looked at it a couple other times too. The year one bid looks very good, but it's not a 12-month cost because with one up here really it's more 10 to 10.5 months. So while we can say, well, in the worst case scenario, you're looking at 8.5% increase. That really isn't accurate going forward. It might be a year, but then as we have year two, then you got a full 12 months of claims, and it's going to take a big. So you got to look at a long term before you jump into it. That's not something you do. And part of it is jump into this year to action. You really have to stick with it for a little bit. So you need to put a lot of research in for a little bit. What we are looking at is we're looking at all three of strong and long. Hopefully there's some good money being self-insured. Question on that.
Utilization. See, it went down this year.
We're strong so far. So our premiums are way up here. Our utilization is down here. So right now there's a good gap between what we're paying in and what insurance is paying out.
It goes back to last year too. Utilization was under.
No, I thought it went on 3 years.
So
I thought it was based on 3 years.
the rate, the renewals, are, but we want it back as far as in the last year.
Okay,
They really wait the last 12 months to 18 months strong when they're looking at a renewal.
Okay,
There's a calculation they use and they always use it to their advantage. If your utilization in the last 6 months is really strong, then we're gonna wait more towards the previous year and vice versa.
Sure.
But, you know, it's one thing I'm used to doing is arguing insurance rates. With the pros in there. Negotiating.
The other thing I was gonna talk about was self-insuring, that just scares me. I remember when I moved to, we had terrible years with seeing my staff coming down with cancer and radiation and blah, blah, blah. And, we had an aging staff coming down with all the usual expenses. An episode like that, self-insured, wow.
You're not 100% self-insured. You would buy stop loss coverage, which would, you know, they came forward with a $50,000 deductible. We asked for $7,500 as well, just to take a look at. Because you can have some people hit 50,000, but usually they get that, they're hitting 100,000 as well. Because it's a cancer, it's a premature birth or something, where they're well receiving that. The other thing you do have to watch out for though is there's an insurance company, a stop loss company can laser someone, which means this person has had cancer in the last 5 years, we're going to cover them all with the plan, and they may give them a higher deductible than that even. And sometimes they don't even allow them on it, and that person is really you're on the hook on their accounts. So there definitely are things I'm looking at.
Is that legal though, Mike? Where they can pre-existing? Got it.
If we're worried about hiring, we need to make sure our insurance is good. So, yeah, I think that's
The
huge.
explanation, they can laser when we move to self-insurance, when it's stop loss provider, they can laser a start. But then
They can't do it.
they can't do that.
Got it.
So that's a bit of a safeguard, but I also asked about a rate cap, and it's 50% is a rate cap, which is very high. So if you have $1 million in premium for stop loss next year, it could be 1.5 million. But I'm pretty confident we can get that number down from what we have in the budget right now.
Except for 10%, maybe down to 5%.
I'm hoping for a flat. If our trend continues, we shouldn't get an increase. They'll come forward with an increase, small, trying to negotiate it back.
Mike, what is the employer-employee split on that?
Employees pay 12%.
12%. Got it. And that's consistent, Andy, in other counties?
Yeah.
Okay.
1288, 1585, some are still 1090.
Most governmental agencies was 12% after Act 10. It's kind of a requirement that you have to be in the state plan, but most adopted even if you weren't on the state plan, but now some of them that. But winter storms is 100%. It can vary.
And the deductibles too are right?
No, those I was just gonna say, premium splits are pretty consistent. I think where it gets a little more varied is deductibles, some are like high deductibles, some are low. Then they combine those, some have HSAs or HRAs. So,
Yeah, that was a concern, I remember not too many years
that
ago.
was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Changed that.
Like, I don't know if we go through this because we're done at 10.
Sure, we can keep going. So those. Meeting with Gary Ellis, he hasn't had an assistant in quite some time.
Couple months.
Doesn't, I don't know if he's gonna need one, seems like it'd be a pretty easy reduction, I think.
That makes me sad.
Yeah. And then. Obviously, I did this before listening to the sheriff, but, you know, he has for 4 positions, and I think we could fund 2 other than one. Not the other 2. Those would be ways of addressing everyone else. I put in here, pulling the property casualty out above the levy limit. I've got a calculation we can look at later. It would cost 5 cents You know, some 5 cents per thousand to do that, so it's not a huge impact. That would bring us down to just under 1.6, which probably will have to take on this year if any. And this, and probably not have to use all of that next year, would still be well above the threshold that the board has set. For fund balance as a percentage of annual expenditures. Then I listed the outside partner organizations, really nothing to speak of there, other than two of them. Senior Resource Center came forward with a really big increase. Don't think we can do that, we can meet somewhere in the middle.
Middle ground there. We don't get it.
And
We're gonna pay through the nose. Because we're using staff and we get to fund that function. So it's just-
it's a big jump, it's double.
Consequences of not doing it. Horrific.
Yeah, the one thing maybe we can do is work for half a year, and then during that time, we're gonna look at with and meals more, because that the cost of even pretty high. So that's something we can discuss. Nematogan Transit is asking for their first increase since we've been doing business with, from 150 to 175. And everything else is very minimal, but even counting that one for Nematogan said 3,000. So moving into preliminary budget. See the active would increase. Fair amount. These amounts don't include the adjustments that I just talked about. Taxes, a lot of it is due to the ambulance, just coming up a lot. But intergovernmental revenue is virtually the same with license and permits. Fines, forfeitures, about the same. Charges would go up just a little bit, both for public and governmental. And this way, as we stay on the same this year. Other financing sources, that one varies a lot because of debt issuance. 2022, we was 8 million for the courthouse submission. Next year, what I've budgeted is the 2.7 million bond council has recommended. And there's also some ARPA money in there. On the expenditure side, the general fund increase again, a lot of that. Again, it's the sheriff's budget request, and also our big correction, emergency services. Up and human services is really just the minimal increase for salaries and insurance. Same with highway. The debt payment is going up because now that will be the first payment on the courthouse borrowing. And the capital. So 2022, the capital is really overstated because that was the only numbers for the expense. When we look at the drawdown schedule, we're going to hit 6 million next year, and then the final 2 million of the courthouses and I've got in there for capital for 2023. And then the other includes spending down the ARPA money, right? The courthouse and everything, plus the couple of lingering probably. Expenditure side. The next page looks at the levy breakdown year to year. And you can see the levies up, but with the valuation going up as well. So now we're going to have the second chart on the same page. The only difference is putting that 250,000 as a supplementary to the property insurance. And as I said, there's a 5 cent difference per 1,000 if we chose to do that. Any questions on that?
Done a good job of getting things started. and on its way.
And then the final page is just tax levy range. We stay pretty consistent.
And then what is our next step on this?
Well, he has to finish it. It looks like he's close to that. And then this is September, October. Bring it to the finance, end of the full board. Gets published in the paper. And in October, you usually turn it over to the board,
We have a public hearing, right?
public hearing.
Yeah.
And November it's gotta be approved.
Yeah, I kind of got a tentative schedule here that I put together. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but. Yeah, we would. I'm assuming we have to post it in the newspapers in 2 weeks or just twice before.
2 weeks.
I've got a tentative of 2 weeks.
Like we used to do that, so we have to look back. Another,
And actually, we probably only have a week in paper.
right,
So it really is 2 weeks.
Does that answer your question roughly?
Yes, I just didn't know what, as committee members, if there was something that we were supposed to be doing, but
The only possible hitch I see is the county is set to approve the budget on November 15th, which is also when the apportionment's due to the state municipalities, which I think can work. I'm assuming the board approves of that, and I don't know what ahead of time. It's smooth, and I.
That's how they kind of,
everything-
yes.
ready.
I could have everything ready and just hit a button after the meeting.
It's a little contentious, Mike, so you'll have to be ready.
Mhm.
Right, Andy?
Yeah,
A lot of that'll shake out in October. We'll know where we're at.
Right. Where are the libraries in here?
They're in
That's
there.
usually a big hit
They're in there.
or a big
It
discussion.
is, I think I've got.
that's the adjustment
Oh,
under there.
Yeah.
thanks.
I mean, they're really not asking for anything out of the ordinary. It's just, again, with Weiss and Winter, we do give substantial.
And I won't get into the weeds, but I thought that it was a one-time last year for the 210 because they had a matching donor. We gave 10,000, but we don't need to do that this year. So that 10,000 will be taken.
When we met with them, they said that was in.
Well, they're gonna say that.
Well, that was my first meeting with them.
Yeah, it was a one-time because they had a matching.
I think the donors.
The donors in perpetuity, it'll be matched, so we don't match.
Do we have something in writing on that? Or is it just hearsay? I mean, it's just a verbal. That, because I know that she had, the head librarian had stated on Tuesday's meeting that they had one of their major donors pass. And so I just want to make sure that is not, that we're not flipping the bill and we've never had anything in writing. It was just at the contentious meeting, they stood up and said, this is the situation, and then we voted on it at that, but there was nothing in writing. So I just want to make sure.
I can check into that. I'm not aware of anything.
I would just think even if it's in perpetuity, I thought it was 1 year, and that's what I understood from the meeting last year.
She didn't mention it.
Pardon me,
She didn't mention it. Last year gave just 1 year.
I thought that, right,
Go back.
but it's our responsibility to not take her word, but have something in writing, correct?
Yes, especially, and I agree, I don't think we voted on it in perpetuity,
Yeah,
there's just one.
because it was presented that day.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we voted, and we budgeted the request with their explanation that that donor was continuing on as long as there was a match. So it's still up to you whether to approve it.
Right, it's still $80,000 more than others.
Yeah, it's about performance.
By a lot, yeah.
Question from the timeline, so. The timeline we're working off of is with, based on what Mike had explained, Mike Keith explained. Some counties do a public hearing like in November as part of the board approval. But his notes said a public hearing in October, is that what you normally do is a public hearing for the budget in the October meeting? Okay.
So then you can get through all of the contentious.
Right.
And then, yeah,
Just want to make sure it's like that.
Can the board make changes after the public hearing?
Make changes right on the floor at the November meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go back to the minutes from last year, you'll see that.
Yeah.
We do.
Maybe.
Agree with us.
Yes,
You just stay out of the way. and-
this is your initiation process.
They can even make changes going into the meeting in November if they wish.
Yeah.
Highly recommend not doing that.
Yeah.
One year we did.
I have a question. The non-governmental agencies, non-county government agencies that requesting money, they provide us with P&Ls.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we get those in this one?
No. I can give those. I guess that's like learning this process with, yeah, all the outside entities, and we request their. Send a letter to them requesting their budget. They submit a report, the P&Ls, financial statements, there's a lot of information that comes in, how much of that do you want? See and how have you been given that in the past?
Well, just for my personal concern, I've got some that I think we gave way too much money to in the past. And didn't look at it carefully, especially the education.
But that's why our sales tax is up. So this is a good thing.
They're taking credit for that too. They can't because the Berkeley already takes credit for that. Inviting is one of them. Came out afterwards that they had a lot more money than what we were told when we voted that money in. I do not want that to happen again. I think between all of the room taxes they are collecting and their normal fees to the people that resort to participate. And we told them 5 years ago, we were going to cut this until they can fly on their own. So I just think that's a waste of money.
Yeah, now just to be honest with the administrator's budget, so I've been made aware of some of the history and I saw how much has been budgeted and how much ultimately it's approved in the budget. So I just try to leave it in there as where it's been approved for the last 3-4 years. That's why, so the number in there is 50.
That's way too much. In my opinion.
Yeah, and I saw kind of where things, the discussion, and they budgeted out of different sources, like they took 10,000 was out of the levy, and then 40 came out of ARPA funds, and 10 came out of the levy, and 40 came out of the resource development funds. So I just went to 50 and tried to keep it into this one. And it would be all levy.
Do we know what their tax cuts are?
Say again?
Do we know what their assets are?
I believe that's in their balance sheet, yeah. And they told us, I mean, yeah, I mean, as far as, to me, they were forthcoming, they were about the additional townships that they were able to get. And I think the message from the board was, we're gonna reduce maybe at some point, you should be out getting these other townships to get room tax. And they've given us those numbers as to what they're getting from those additional townships for room tax. So we have that information.
Which is significant.
Sure.
But I mean, then and then every potential request is going to get picked on. So
Yes.
yeah, so I was just making you aware that once you open that can of worms, you're kind of set for fishing.
Would you vote to the full board or the finance committee?
Finance. And that's kind of the next question is, the next finance committee, should we just basically have the budget on here and have the P&L reports for them other identities?
I like that idea.
Yes.
It's either that or have a special meeting. I'd rather do it this way unless there's something that comes up we have to deal with, which is absolutely fine, but let's try it that way and see how we make out.
Would you like those ahead of time or just cash to the agenda? So I can do that right away.
Nice.
I think attached to the agenda.
Yeah, because I send the agenda out a week before, so if there is an attachment. it will be- Oh, no, you don't want to do that one. So that's the public.
They have, it's public information. They
Okay,
have
so
to
then
submit
it
it
can be.
as part of their budget request for public money.
Yeah.
So it's public information.
And it's good to be transparent that way when we're debating, people know what we're debating.
This year.
That meeting could take a while. Should you flip flop next month with admins and all the much first and then we start? So we don't have to get it done in designated time. Right.
We're here for the whole process.
I would propose not doing that, so we still have we have our.
And we'll just have to make a break then. If we run over.
I would rather let the finance run over a little bit if we had to. And because you start changing meetings and the public's got to know about it. It's just, it's a battle.
Or we could move admin to 11,
We could do that.
give you guys another hour. And run over, whatever you need.
I would just leave it at
Finances.
10 and if we run.
But budget
over,
is our number one concept.
Well, I think having a timeline keeps us out of the weeds. We sometimes talk about certain things that we don't need to go over time when it's on, and so this keeps us on task. Having it at the same time, is my opinion.
Yep, yep.
Well, I think you need a lot.
That being said, we're at the 10 o'clock.
That's my point exactly. I understand your opinion, but when we're under a time limitation, we hurry up. We make bad decisions.
Well, you know what we could do too is see how far we get through, and if we're halfway through and we want to stop, we can just set up another meeting to finish it. Just kind of play it by ear, see where we're at. All right,
That's our future agenda item.
that's our future agenda. item.
All right.
Correspondence, other things. Meeting it, yes.
I have one other question. We, talking about police salaries. Does LCO have the same problem out there with the police? Your salary.
And there's very few students in the pipeline to choose from and very few applicants.
Your salary is comparable to ours?
Yes, but it costs us a lot.
So I can publish this in the paper before that meeting, is that okay? I think the timeline would dictate that I need.
For October?
Yeah.
I don't think you would do the primary or the preliminary.
Yeah.
What's
What's the note say? And it's got to be in the newspaper 2 weeks. Before the October meeting or before the November meeting?
Yeah, so we're just gonna talk about it at the October meeting and then you can put it in the paper after that.
Yeah, Mike kind of like to have it for 6. before budget in these papers. Because in the budget here, it's on October 20th. And it's the hearing, it's for the hearing. So I just. When the approved budget is published. So it does go in play.
I don't have that answer right now, but I can find it.
I'll type it later.
Yeah, see what Mike says, because before you publish it, the committee should approve it.
Well, that's what I was thinking. That makes sense.
That is true.
But I remember discussion that he always had is we got to get it in the paper early, and we usually did something to do that. I think we had,
They get a special meeting. For that.
I think this time, I think I'm giving the board a budget. We are, so that can be published. For the, it's not what it is, it's noticed in the public hearing.
Yeah.
So the public hearing can be held and change the budget all the way up through November.
Right.
and we're gonna have the public hearing in October. Okay. All right, thank you, everybody. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Do you have time?
Yeah.